Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Oceanside Library. My name is Deborah Keener. I'm head of adult programming and community services. I'm here with my colleague, Emily Van Allen, adult services librarian. We're so happy that you came out on a rainy night. We're very happy you're here joining us for our first dessert and dish. So please, we have some desserts in the back and some coffee, so please help yourselves. We just want to take a second to do some housekeeping. Please silence your cell phones. Also, if you can take a look in the back of the theater where the exits are, and if, God forbid, there is an emergency, please make your way through the exits down to the main staircase. When you leave the room, you would make a left. So we want to thank all of you again. We would like to thank our director and assistant director and our colleagues for supporting all our wonderful programs here at the library. We do want to tell everyone that this program is being recorded. So everyone smile. Are we ready?
I think we're ready.
Okay, perfect. So Emily, take it away.
All right, so Ellen Meister is the author of 10 novels, her latest titled Joyride, which was selected by Zibby Owens as one of the most anticipated books of 2025. Her nonfiction has appeared in the New York Times, Newsday, the Wall Street Journal blog, Huffington Post, Daily Beast, Long Island Woman, Writer's Digest, and more. Some career highlights include appearances on NPR, being selected for the prestigious Indie Next list by the American Booksellers Association, foreign language translations of her book, and receiving a TV series option from HBO. She teaches creative writing and also offers editorial and ghostwriting services. Ellen, why don't you come on out?
Hello. Oh, we love having you here.
See, it's on.
Yes, it's on.
Thank you for coming out, everybody. I know it's a big deal on a rainy night, so I appreciate it.
So Ellen, I don't know if you remember, but we interviewed you during COVID. So I don't know if others remember that. It was one of our first, instead of Zoom, we did go-to meetings during COVID, and you were one of our first guests. So we thank you for that, because those online programs really helped us during that time.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
So for those who are new to your work, tell us a little bit about yourself, what inspired you to be a writer, and...
Big question. Starting with the hard stuff. I think I was one of those people who was always a writer. It just took a certain sort of moment for me to discover it and realize, oh, right, yes, of course. That's what I'm meant to do. Write books, write novels. But when my career first started out, I was much better at procrastinating than actually writing. So it took me a very, very long time. I mean, I graduated college thinking, great, I'm going to, write, I'm going to be an American novelist. It's my dream. But I went to work in the advertising industry. I became a copywriter. And it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I finally said, you know what, this ride doesn't go on forever. Let's just take a leap of faith and give it a shot. So I started writing. I had small kids, and I published my first book. It was called Secret Confessions of the Applewood PTA, very Long Island centric, but a made up town. And that was in 2006. And I'll tell you, interestingly, when I landed an agent for that book, my agent said to me, where do you see yourself as a writer in 5 years? And I said, 5 years? I said, if I can walk into a bookstore and see my name on a book, I can die happy. That was it. I was done. I thought I had that one book in me and that was it. And now here I am, 10 books later. They all always feel like my baby, and they all always feel like my favorite. But Joyride is very, very special to me. It's very near and dear to my heart.
Well, We're going to jump right into Joyride.
Yes. So tell us about the moment when you were inspired to write Joybird. What came to you first? Was it Joybird's character? Was it a situation, the setting?
Yeah, interestingly, and people are always asking me as a writer, where do you get your ideas from? And the truth is that writers sort of get ideas from everywhere. And I think it's not so much about where you get ideas from, but it's about teaching yourself to pay attention to the things that are flitting in and out of your head. Because I think we all get crazy ideas now and then. But if you're a writer, you sort of stop the idea and you go, wait a minute, could that be a book? So with this one, it started as an idea for something I was absolutely not going to write. I just sort of had this crazy idea that I would love to see a situation comedy about these two characters, this father and this daughter. And I saw it in Brooklyn, and I saw this very sort of hipster setting, and this very curmudgeonly, crusty father, and this very sort of optimistic, earnest daughter. I kind of saw her as, who's seen Parks and Rec? So I sort of saw her as this Leslie Knope kind of character, very earnest. And I thought that could be a funny sitcom. I mean, I was literally picturing it like a multicam sitcom filmed for a live studio audience, But that wasn't, I'm not a sitcom writer, I'm a novelist. I thought, well, that would make an interesting sitcom. I just kind of like the idea of this odd couple sparring between the father and the daughter. But it was just one of a lot of ideas that were flitting in and out of my head. But I went on to write another book, and there was something about those characters that kept coming back to me, the father and the daughter. And the more I lived with it, the more I got to know them. And I thought, maybe there is a novel in this relationship. And I started to think about it, and I said, I think I'm going to at least give it a shot and try to write it. So I wrote the first 200 pages. Honestly, it wasn't very good. And that's the way it is with writing sometimes. Doesn't always come out like a diamond. But then I put it aside because I was contractually obligated to write another book for my publisher at the time, which was Mira. I had just written 2 books for them that were sort of light, funny murder mysteries that took place at a shopping channel. But they were waiting for a 3rd book. And I got the idea to write, they didn't want another shopping channel book. I got the idea to write Take My Husband, which was born of the pandemic, when I think we all sort of had these fantasies about sort of shoving our significant others off this mortal coil because everybody was driving us crazy. So that it was a dark comedy. So I put it aside to write that. And then I started to go back to it. And then I got this idea for another book, which really took me out of my comfort zone. That was called Divorce Towers, because it was sort of glam, which is not me and not my life, but I set it in Beverly Hills, and I just wanted to write this really escapist, fun, funny, sexy book. So still, I had these 200 pages written. So then after that, I said, I'm going to go back to that book. Wow. And then it's very hard. I don't usually write like that. I usually, once I start, I finish. Right. So I was really challenged to go back and pick up the thread of the story and figure it all out. So I finished writing it, and it still honestly wasn't very good. Okay. And I rewrote it. When I do a rewrite, every time I save it, I save the same file. I write over the same file on my computer, and I'll just call it Joyride V1 version 1. Joyride, I'll say rewrite that V2. By the time I turned it in, I was on V17. Oh, wow. So it went through a lot of rewrites, but I finally got it to where I never stopped believing in the book. I knew that I had something. It was really the father character that was so tough for me to sort of nail and make him curmudgeonly enough without really turning off readers. Okay. Yeah.
I have to say, it's interesting that you said you wrote it like a sitcom, because that's how I read it.
Oh, interesting.
I read it like a sitcom. And actually, for me, the dad was Paul Reiser the whole time.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Thank you for casting it.
That's who it was the whole time for me.
In my head, he was sort of a cross between Dr. House and Dorothy Parker. That's how I saw this guy. Yeah.
Well, Joybird Martin is an optimist in the world that often leans towards cynicism. How did you develop her character, and what challenges did you face in portraying her in this unwavering positivity?
Yeah, the biggest challenge for me was I was sort of afraid to write the whole book from Joybird's point of view because I do tend to write books with a lot of humor in them. And I never had a main character before who had no sarcastic edge. And I said, how can she carry a whole book if she has no sarcastic edge? That was a real challenge for me. And it was one of the reasons that I went through so many rewrites. So I thought, well, maybe I'll have her father narrate the whole book. So I actually wrote from page 1 to the end, the whole book from her father's point of view. And then after showing it to some beta readers, I realized it really didn't work to have that cynical character be carrying the whole book. And so then I thought, well, I've read a couple of, and I just was resisting making Joybird the narrator. And I was thinking about a few books I'd read recently where somebody who was main character adjacent was actually the narrator of the book. And I'm thinking of like Fleischman is in Trouble. Has anybody read that book? Fleischman is in Trouble was actually, and people don't even realize, but it was narrated by like a friend of the main character. And then there's a book by, I want to say Sean Andrew Greer called Less. Wonderful. I really recommend it. It was a wonderful book. But it was narrated by the main character's significant other who doesn't even appear on screen at all in the book. Okay. So I thought, well, that's kind of out there and experimental, but maybe that's what I need to do. So then I tried narrating them. And when I say now, I rewrote, again, from page 1 to the last page, I rewrote the whole book from the point of view of Betty, the upstairs neighbor.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, it's okay, but I don't think I'm there yet. And then I said, you know what? I think I just have to take a leap and see what happens if I let Joybird narrate it. But I also gave certain chapters to her father. So he had his own chapters. So I struck that balance. And yeah, it was challenging for me. Listen, I think part of it was really having the confidence to do it. Because I'm the kind of writer, honestly, I like to tap dance my little heart out on every page of the book. I started out in advertising, and I always think that people are reading my stuff over a garbage can, and I have to sort of like catch them before they let it go and throw the thing away. So I really, really, really do want to entertain the readers. And so that was my fear, that it wouldn't be entertaining enough from Joybird's point of view. So I think it was a matter of just getting up my confidence and being able to say, you know what, I think she can carry the book, especially if there's chapters from her father's point of view. And then once I did that, I finally had the book.
Yeah, so this is going off to the beta readers that you brought up.
Yes.
I read the acknowledgments. When I read a book, I read the acknowledgments. I have to read the entire book. I want to know a backstory.
Right.
So I read in the acknowledgments that you went through a couple rounds with the beta readers,
Yes.
and they basically rejected the book idea. Did they hear the Sid Marcus version of it, or did they hear the Betty version of it, or were they just given Joybird's?
They were given mostly the Sid Marcus version. That was the one I just kept rewriting before realizing that it just wasn't going to work. And they loved the idea for the book. They all loved the idea for the book. They said, you have some snappy dialogue. It's very funny. But this guy is so crusty and so negative. I feel like I need a break from him. So there were two things going on. One was that I really did have to pull back his anger issues a little bit. I think it was just, I went a little too far with it. I had to pull that back, but I also had to make him not the narrator. So I kept showing it to beta readers, and and do you know what a beta reader is? It's like, okay. And I'm very blessed. I have some wonderful writer friends. You have to have wonderful writer friends who are willing to read and be honest with you and tell you what's wrong with the book, and not just say, oh, it's wonderful, it's wonderful. Just, you want somebody to be at least a little bit tough on you and tell you, what the problems are. Even if they don't tell you how to fix it, they tell you what the problems are. But everybody just kept coming back and going, that father character is just too much. He's just too much. And I kept scaling him back. And then I finally sort of figured out exactly what I was doing wrong, not just in terms of narrating, but in terms of what I was doing wrong in terms of his character. So then there just came a point where I said, I think I finally figured it out.
I think you did too.
Thank you.
It really balanced itself out. I really loved the chapters that had Sid's point of view, and I think it was a perfect dose of him.
Thanks. I mean, listen, I love the guy. Warts and all, I love the guy. But I think as a writer, you really have to love all your characters with their flaws and all. You have to love them. You have to love their flaws. If you don't, then I think it's going to come through to the reader.
I liked Sid. He was my
Him
favorite.
too. I like him too. But I love Dr. House, so.
The premise of an Uber driver life coach is an interesting concept. Was this inspired by your own experience in an Uber? What was the most unique experience you've ever had in an Uber?
I don't take Ubers a lot. I mean, I'm a Long Island woman. I've got my car. I drive everywhere. Well, two things. One, I think when I initially saw it in my mind as a sitcom, I think I saw her as something like a Reiki healer, and that there would be like this sort of parade of kooky characters in and out of the apartment that the father could react to. I said I really saw it as like a really typical sitcom. But then when I started to imagine it as a book, I said, I don't know where the whole idea of her being a life coach from an Uber, but first I said, what if she's a life coach? And I was like, oh my gosh, if she's an Uber driver and she becomes a life coach from the front seat of her car, that could be, really interesting. Mm-hmm. Where it came from, I'm not really sure, but I can tell you that I'm from a taxi cab family. My grandfather and then my parents ran a New York City fleet of taxi cabs. Oh, wow. So I think it's just sort of in my DNA, driving people around. So I think it was just sort of always sort of there simmering under the surface. And once I got the idea, I said, I think that could really be fun and interesting and a little different. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't even thinking about it in terms of a log line for the book at the time. But once I had it down, boy, of all my books, this is the easiest one to pitch in terms of just giving people a sense. I say it's about a woman Uber driver who becomes a life coach from the front seat of her car. It's like, oh, got it.
Right.
That's a really easy elevator pitch.
And it's funny because it's like how people open up to a bartender or their hairstylist.
Or a librarian.
Or a librarian. So, I see it. I can totally see somebody getting in the back of an Uber and telling their life story. So it really works.
Right.
And Joybird, obviously being a life coach, it talks, I don't know.
Listen, as a mom, I do understand there is something much easier about having the difficult conversations in a car because you're not making eye contact. Right. And I think when you're not making eye contact, sometimes it's easier to have those difficult conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So going off of the life coaching aspect of it, what are your thoughts on the rise of self-help culture? Like there's been a rise in self-help books and a lot more people are destigmatizing it, really.
Listen, I think whatever helps people, whether it's going for therapy or, reading a self-help book, I'm all for people doing what helps them feel better and feels good, especially now, nowadays when there's just so much stress and so much going on in the world that's giving people such agita. I think, whatever gives you solace, whatever gives you comfort is just fantastic. Interestingly, it can be hard to parody self-help books. It's kind of an interesting thing. So I'll confess to you that actress Lisa Kudrow is my cousin. Oh. And for a while, she had a web, what do you call it, like a web series called Web Therapy. And this was before the explosion of Zoom. Oh, wow. And it was really, ridiculous in the context of this show that she was a web therapist. She did therapy online,
Right.
and at the time it was silly. Now it's ubiquitous. I mean, who doesn't see their therapist online now?
That's very true.
But she couldn't have kept up with that parody because the therapist in that, she was terrible.
Yeah.
Obviously.
It came out in 2008 for context.
2008.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that.
And I'll tell you, that reminds me of another interesting thing. So in I wrote 2 books in which the character of Dorothy Parker comes to life in a modern setting. And one of my characters was a TV producer. And I needed an idea. I needed to just mention a reality show in the context of the book, something replaced something else on TV. I just needed a title of a reality show. It was sort of a throwaway, funny line. And this was going back a number of years. And I thought of this really funny idea for a reality show called, hand to God, Botched. A reality show about botched plastic surgery.
Get out of here.
And I thought, oh, that's hilarious. And now, fast forward, so you write the book and it, sells to the publisher and you go through the revisions and then you get edits and then I'm in the proofreading stage and all of a sudden I see this commercial on E! Entertainment Network for a show called Botched about botched plastic surgery. So I said to my editor, there's a real show called Botched coming out. I said, can I leave that? She said, no. You got to come up with something else. And I really don't know what to do. I was going to call it Oh No, about botched plastic surgery. And I called my cousin Lisa Kudrow, who was making a show called The Comeback at that point. And I said, I really can appreciate how hard it is to parody reality TV, because she was parodying reality TV. And I told her about this issue. And she said, Oh No is funny, but what if you called the show What Happened to Your Face? So I said, I like that. So there is like a little line that Lisa Kudrow wrote in one of my Dorothy Parker books. The throwaway line that they refer to the show is What Happened to Your Face?
That's awesome. So in the book, the parent-child dynamic between Sid and Joybird is central to the story. How did you approach creating this relationship? Because it touches on some heavy themes, such as abandonment and guilt, but it does it with a balance of comedy and seriousness.
It's really important for me to touch on all of that. When I develop a book, I think about several things at once. When I think about a story, I try to think about what my character wants that they don't have, what their goal is throughout the book, and that's really what drives the narrative. And I also think about what arc I want my character to have. What do I want them to learn by the end of the book? What does this journey, where does it deliver them emotionally? So I really was thinking about these 2 characters, what their journey was, and what they had to learn and the ways in which they had to change. Sid obviously had a lot to learn, even though he should have been older and wiser. He had a lot of issues, but he was aware that he had issues, and I gave him that much, He knew he needed to make improvements in his life. It was just he had trouble getting out of his own way. And Joybird really had to understand. I decided to make her a character who just felt like she didn't have any value unless she was helping people. And she had to learn her intrinsic value by the end. So, I say this almost like it maybe sounds like it sort of dropped from a muse, but this was a lot of months of hard thinking about who these people were and what their arcs could be, what would be interesting to a reader, what would be interesting to me to write. And how I could take them on the journey and how they could interact with each other and how these forces can all come into play. And one of the ways I work on story ideas is a lot of times I just make notes on my computer, but having dogs is very helpful because one of the things I do is I go on walks with my dog, with my one dog that likes to go for walks, the other one does not. And I take my cell phone and I hit the little record button and I talk into my phone as I'm walking the dog, and it's stream of consciousness, sort of every idea about the character. And it's better than daydreaming about the book, because if I'm talking and making a recording, even if I never play the recording back, it's more focused than just daydreaming. I'm actually really thinking about, I'm asking my questions, I'm answering the questions. I mean, I'm sure I sound completely deranged to anybody who's walking by, but doing that for many, many walks and many, many weeks, the story starts to emerge, the characters start to emerge. You just have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. You have to work really hard. You have to be ambitious about, I don't mean just ambitious as a writer and wanting to be on the bestseller list, but ambitious about your work, ambitious about wanting it to be as good as possible. And that's what pushes me, and that's what keeps me going. I just always want to write the best book that I possibly can. So that's what keeps me on those walks with little Theo, talking into my phone like a crazy person.
What kind of dogs do you have?
So I have a crazy rescue hound named Ruby.
I have a Ruby.
Do you have a Ruby?
I do.
What kind of dog is your Ruby?
She's a Boston Terrier.
Oh, okay. Well, my Ruby is, she's got a lot of breeds in her. She was found, emaciated in the South. She was a starving hound dog, but she's half treeing Walker Coonhound, if you know what that is. Only people who really watch the dog shows, know what that is. So she has a lot of emotional baggage, a lot of soul, a lot of emotional baggage. She loves the backyard. She doesn't like to go out the front because she's terrified of cars, lawnmowers, anything with a motor. So she's a very happy dog in the house, but don't take her out the front because she will freak out. And Theo is just this little cavapoo who's just, everything makes him happy, especially being with me. So he's my little shadow. Yeah.
Aww, he's a mommy's boy.
He is a mommy's boy, just follows me everywhere.
Aww. So if you were to create a soundtrack for Joyride, what song would capture Joyride's spirit?
I actually, my older son made a little video for the book, and he used this very old song from the 70s. What was the name of that song? Taking a Ride. Do you know that song? It was this very, very happy song. So yeah, that would be it. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact title. I think it's called Hitching a Ride. Come on, who remembers that song? Ride, 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 hitching a ride
Michelle
from the
Owen,
70s.
she remembers.
Yeah.
Hitching a
Yeah.
ride.
But it was a happy song, And he was able to use it without any licensing issues. So
So it was a perfect song.
it was perfect.
So going on that, if this novel was made into a TV series or a movie, who would you cast as Sid, Joybird, Devin, Betty? Who would be?
Well, for Sid, I loved your suggestion of Paul Reiser. I think that's great. I think there's any one of like a lot of actors who could play him, like Bryan Cranston, who's such a superb actor. What's his name? Who played Josh on The West Wing? Bradley Whitford.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think there's any one of a number of actors. For Devin, I kept picturing that guy. His name is. He's got a French name like Reg. He was in the first season of Bridgerton.
Oh, Reggie.
Yeah, Reggie. Reggie.
I can't think of his last name,
but I think he pronounced it Reggie or Reg something.
Yeah.
Reg Jean something.
Right.
Something like that. He's gorgeous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I just kept picturing him. I don't really have a specific actress in mind for Joybird, I kept seeing like a young Zoe Deschanel.
Oh,
Yeah.
I could see that.
But obviously, Joybird is quite a bit younger than her. So do you have any, were you picturing anybody?
So for Betty, Shelley Long.
Oh, how wonderful. Yes, that's great.
You're hired.
Yeah, you're hired. Yeah.
For Joybird, you know what? Because you're just, now it's in my head. Zoe Deschanel, that, when she was on New Girl.
Yes.
When she was on that show, I can totally see that. I don't know who's new and up.
Not a TV person.
Oh.
I'm a book person.
I can't think of.
Does anybody? Do any of you have any ideas for casting?
Yeah.
What's that? Oh yeah, Hilary Duff.
Okay.
Yeah, love her.
I like
love
that
her.
one.
Oh, you know who else? But again, the younger version. I can't think of her name, but she was on How I Met Your Mother. The redheaded. Is her name Allison Hannigan? Yeah, I could see. Yeah. She would probably be a great Joybird. Yeah. There's a show. Well, there's a show, I believe it's on Hulu, and this is why Paul Reiser was in my head.
Yeah.
There's a show, I think, again, on Hulu called Reboot.
Yeah, but they took it off after one season.
I know,
it was
but
wonderful.
It was a great show, and I think that's why he's in my head, because he was...
And that also had the father-daughter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he was a bit of a curmudgeon and, a TV writer, so I think that's why he's in my head. But that actress also probably would have been...
Yeah, Bloom. What's her name? Rachel Bloom?
Rachel Bloom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emily from Emily in Paris would be good if she was cute.
Oh yeah.
So Lily Collins?
Lily Collins.
See, I know someone.
Yeah,
she would be good.
She would be good.
Yeah.
That would
good
be great.
suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's any talk about, maybe?
Well, my literary agent is showing it to Hollywood agents right now, because that's how it works. Like the literary agent doesn't sell it to Hollywood. The literary agent gets a co-agent who has those Hollywood connections. So, yeah, I mean, I would love it, obviously.
Right.
Yeah. So there's nothing cooking, but step one is getting the right agent. So.
So your first novel was published in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
So much has changed since then. Are there things that you know now as a writer that you wish you knew back then?
Well, the industry just keeps changing and changing and changing. And at every time, it's always like, this is the worst time in the history of publishing to be writing a book. And it's always true. But I think that I've learned a lot about plotting since writing my first book. I was just sort of feeling my way around in the dark with that first book, but I read in the intervening years so much about story structure. And I always believed in story structure, and I still always believe in story structure, but I've just learned more about how to do it and how to break down a novel. But the funny thing is, the more I learn, the more I wind up saying, well, why don't I challenge myself and go beyond what I've learned? I had several years ago gotten this idea, just like this idea wasn't something I was going to write. I had gotten an idea, like the muse just flew in my window and gave me an idea for a murder happens at the shopping channel, like a funny murder mystery that happens at a shopping channel. And I thought, okay, I don't have no idea how to write a murder mystery. And I wanted to tell my muse, just go, Susan Isaacs lives up in, Sands Point. Go to her house because she's the mystery writer on Long Island, not me. But again, that idea wouldn't leave me alone. And I didn't know, I had to teach myself how to write a murder mystery. Right. So I started reading articles about how to structure a murder mystery. So I think the more I learn and the more I teach myself, then I always get to a point where I say, let me try something that I haven't tried before. Right now, and I don't even know if I'm going to, I actually have 2 books that I'm working on. But one of them is the kind of book I never thought I'd try. but it's a really, really dark, twisted psychological thriller. I don't know. The idea came to me, and it's so crazy. And again, the idea came to me. I thought it seemed like a movie to me, but I said, I wonder if I could write that as a book. So I'm trying it. I don't know. It doesn't seem like an Ellen Meister book at all. If I publish it, it'll probably be under a pseudonym. But I'll see if I could write it. So yeah, I just keep learning more and more about plot and how to structure, and then throwing it out the window and trying something even more challenging. I guess I get bored easily.
If you were to, what would your pseudonym be? What can you tell us? Do you have any
Well, I
ideas?
have a couple in the wings, but I have this name years ago. When I wrote that first murder mystery, I thought, well, it's not going to be an Ellen Meister book because it's just off-brand for me. So I came up with this name, Eden Jaffe, and I had that name on the cover of the manuscript, and I actually got I bought the web domain, EdenJaffe.com, and I actually started back then when I was using Twitter, a Twitter account, and she's got a Facebook account. But then what happened was, this is, I don't know, kind of interesting if you're interested in the whole behind the scenes in terms of the publishing industry. But so I thought when I wrote, I was calling it at first, it came out as Love Sold Separately. It was called I was calling it Kitty Kitty Bang Bang, because the shopping channel host that gets murdered is named Kitty Todd. So I was calling it Kitty Kitty Bang Bang. And I thought it was the most commercial book I'd ever written. I had a blast writing it. And because, people read murder mysteries, and it was the shopping channel, and it was funny, and it was, it was tense, and it had all that stuff going for it. But my agent started to send it around to murder mystery publishers, and they said, yeah, we really love this book, but we don't know how to sell this because it doesn't fit into any mystery category. It's not a cozy. See, a cozy is a murder mystery with an amateur sleuth, which my book had, but a cozy is very G-rated. It usually takes place in a small town. Mine was Manhattan. And it's, like G-rated, and it's usually something kind of adorable. It usually is like knitting or cupcake baking or something. Okay. And mine was like kind of sex, drugs, rock and roll. So it just wasn't, it didn't fit into the whole...
You couldn't fit in knitting needles somewhere?
Yeah, it didn't fit into the cozy category. It wasn't a procedural, and it wasn't a thriller. And they didn't know what to do with it. And so the person at the executive editor at Mira Books really fell in love with it, but she said we're going to market it as a rom-com because it also had a romance threaded through it. So that's how Kitty Kitty Bang Bang became Love Sold Separately, and written by Ellen Meister, because when it was going to be sold as a murder mystery, I thought it needed to have a different name on it, and they said, no, let's put your name on it. So, yeah, that's a sort of an evolution of how I lost my identity and got it back again. And I have some other names too, but that was the one that was I really was intent on using at the time.
So, we're library workers. We have to ask this. What are you currently reading?
I am currently reading Frederick Backman's new novel. It's called My Friends. I'm listening to it on audio. I'm also reading a book in hard. I'll tell you what else I'm reading, but I usually have two books going. One, I'm actually reading a book, and the other, I'm actually listening. But I'm just bringing up the Frederick Bachman book because it is knocking my socks off. Have you read it yet?
I haven't.
I can't recommend this highly enough. It's magnificent. It's just one of the best books I've ever read.
Oh,
and he's one of my favorite writers, but I'm just loving this book. So I'm reading Frederick Bachman's My Friends, and I'm also reading one of Ruth Ware's older books, Mrs. Westaway, I think it's called, or something like that. Yeah. Also, she's just a wonderful writer. You can see I have pretty divergent tastes, I do read a lot of different things, and I usually people say, what kind of type of books do you like to read? Because I do read a lot of different genres. And I usually say I read anything but science fiction because it's just not my music. It doesn't talk to me. Right. But then I read then I read and loved that Andy Weir book. What was it called? Not The Martian. the next
Project Hail Mary.
Project Hail Mary, which is very good. See, it's always handy to have a librarian around. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Did you read it?
No, I haven't.
I absolutely loved it. So, yeah, I just never say never. And that's definitely science fiction. But he's just such a wonderful writer and, so inventive, really inventive. So, yeah.
Can I ask a question?
We're going to have a
Okay.
question round. Are you currently working on something? Before we go to questions, are you currently working on
So I am working on the one that I mentioned, that dark thriller, but then I'm also working on something that speaks to me in a very personal way. I'm not going to say it's my most autobiographical work, but I am. Just be careful what you say because it could wind up in the book. That's all I'm saying. But it is, I am trying to really take people around me and fictionalizing them, and probably the main character probably has more in common with me than any of my previous books. So we'll see. I just started it, but I'm really having a lot of fun with it. So yes, working on a couple things. I'm always working on something.
Fantastic. So we're going to do some questions. Emily will go in the audience.
Walk around.
Thank you for those wonderful questions, by the way.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for being here. You had just said that you're not a fan of science fiction, but I think it's called The Other Life, which I thought was awesome, is sort of science fiction-y. So I was very surprised that you said that.
I don't think of it as science fiction. I do think of it as having a paranormal element, But I guess there are different definitions of what makes something science fiction, because it's not very science-y. It's really more like a magical realism element.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I would just say things that have to do with, I'm not into, and I know it's so popular now, but I'm not into science fiction. I'm not into fantasy. So romantasy, I know, is the hugest thing. It's the genre that just keeps building and building and building and building. And I don't know why it doesn't speak to me, but it just doesn't. And I encourage everybody to just love what you love and, read the books that really speak to you. Certainly a lot of people love fantasy. That's just not my music,
Well, I really love that book. So
Thank you.
Thank you for writing it. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. The Other Life. It was probably my most serious book, even though it has humor in it. But as a mom, that one really spoke to me. So thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Anyone else have questions?
Thing I realized looking at you on stage. Did you purposefully do your nails the color of Joybird's car, or did that just happen?
No, but
Right, that's the color of the car, yeah.
it does look like the same color as the car, but no, it's not, because the car is a little more aqua, and these are a little more periwinkle. So
Up here.
Yeah. But that was an interesting question, Rook.
I would have asked you later, but I was like, she's on stage, she's answering questions.
No, I've just really
Also, I've been arguing with her about genre for years.
This is my offspring over here.
Hi.
This is Rook. So, yeah.
Are there any more questions? Oh, go ahead.
I'm a cover person. I don't speak.
Oh, how did the cover come about? Do you get a say in how the cover?
Yeah. So the way it usually works with a publisher is that contractually, the author does not have final say on the cover. So if you really came to blows with your publisher and you hated the cover, they can override any, issues that you have. However, publishers really like the author to be happy with the cover. So they do, in my experience, all of my publishers have worked very closely with me, making me happy with the cover, so that if they sent me something I didn't like it, they would go back to the drawing board. This was really one of the first ideas they came to me. I was really curious to see what they came up with. Also there are trends. There are trends in covers, and I'm not up on, what the modern reader is going to look for and what colors and what's going to sort of like, be the marketing key to the book. So I have my opinions, but I also like to trust that the people in the art department and the marketing department are pros, and they want the book to sell. So they're giving you a cover that they think is absolutely going to appeal to the right kind of readers. So they came to me with it. I think we tweaked the colors a little bit. I think we tweaked the type a little bit. But other than that, I was very, very happy with what they did with it. I think it was kind of a hard book to, think how to do visually. And they did something that's like kind of literal, but also very, very playful. I mean, it takes place in Brooklyn, so they got the Brooklyn Bridge, the blue car. And I just kind of liked, it's got sort of, I call it like a clip art look. It looks like clip art, which I think is something that's graphically popular right now. So I'm very happy with the cover.
Yeah, I like the background color. It's like a red, and then the car is sky blue because that was
Yeah.
the car in the book.
Yeah. The only thing about this cover is the colors play very differently, whether it's in person or on your computer or on your phone. Because in person, the color is kind of like a melon color.
Yeah.
But when I look at it digitally, sometimes on my phone, it almost looks like a neon red. So it reads very different in the different, where you're looking at it. I think we got a question up here.
Are you on the iPad?
Am I on an iPad?
Yes, your book.
Oh, it's like on Kindle, you mean? Yes.
No, I have Libby.
Yeah.
It's on
It should be
Libby?
available on Libby, yeah.
Thank you.
But I don't know. I mean, this library would need to have it on Libby.
It is.
Yeah. It's available Kindle, it's available paperback, and it's also an audiobook. And I have to say, because this isn't bragging, because I didn't do it, they hired a magnificent audiobook narrator. I love her. I absolutely love the audiobook narration. I do listen to a lot of audiobooks, so I'm very particular.
Oh, so you don't have a say in that either.
I have a little bit of it depends on the publisher.
Okay.
Some publishers you get, you don't know who's going to narrate it till they give it to you. But this publisher, Montlake, and my previous publisher, Mira, they actually would they would narrow it down to like 3 to 5 choices, and they would send me clips of these people reading a clip from the book and ask me which one I like best.
Okay.
And with this one, and they were all good and they were all talented, but the narrator that we got, to me, she was a clear winner. It's like, that's the right person for this book.
Okay.
And listen, sometimes people say to me, because sometimes at my events, I do readings, people say, oh, you're a very good reader. You should read your own books. I say, you know what? I'm not an actor.
Mm-hmm.
And audiobook narrators bring layers to it that I could never hope to achieve. I'm very grateful for actors. I'm very grateful for the people that read my books and do, such a great job with it. I couldn't do the kind of job that this woman does. She's absolutely terrific. So.
Yeah, the audio actors, they really bring it to life. So you really do need somebody who can capture everything,
Right.
the words on the page, and bring it to life.
Yeah, and one of the things I'm amazed with is how they can do different voices. And I think there was a question up here. And she can affect a woman's voice and a man's voice.
Yes.
It's very impressive.
Hi, thank you so much for writing this.
Sure.
Quick question. I think it's very interesting how Joybird's relationship with Noah and Devin play into it, and how she doesn't really value herself and she falls for this guy, and like it's almost like no one really understands what makes them happy, and she turns off to Devin. Meanwhile, that's the one she starts really thinking about. So my question has nothing to do with that. I just want to say I really like that part.
Thank you. Compliments are always welcome,
There you go.
FYI.
My question was actually, where did you get the name Joybird from?
As much as I talk about how hard I work at my ideas and, all those walks with the dog and talking into my phone, that one, my muse just sort of dropped on me and I went, oh, her name is Joybird. And I just started writing it with that. And when I get those little gifts, I say, just go with it. You can always change it later. And I do very often change character names later on. Thank goodness for the search and replace feature in Word. But that name just came to me. And then that's when I realized I got her name first. Then I said, oh, Joyride. That'll be the name of her business. And that could even be the name of my book. And I'll tell you, when I came up with it, I submitted it under the title Joyride. I thought, well, the publishers very often do change the title of a book. And I thought there was a really good chance they changed the title of this, only because at the time that I was submitting this, there were like 2 movies and a TV show called Joyride. I mean, it was just everywhere. And I know you can't copyright a title, and I know it's okay, but I just thought they might be concerned about the catchphrase is SEO, search engine optimization, that people would look for this book and not find it. So I thought, all right, well, I'll just let the marketing people tell me, and I'll just have to think of maybe the something Joyride or, but no, they liked it and they felt it was going to work. And so I was delighted. Yeah. And that's another thing. They never tell you, the writer doesn't necessarily have final say on the title, but I've never known a publisher that would force a title on an author. They really want the authors to be happy. They want you to come back and write more books for them if this one is successful. And they want you to love the book and be proud of it and get out there and talk to people and sell it. If you're ashamed of the book and you're cringing at the title and cringing at the cover, maybe you're not going to be out there in public and on social media trying to get everybody to buy it. So they really want you to love your book. Generally speaking, the editors, the publishers, they do respect authors as the artist.
Because it is your work. It's like a baby, right? It's, you want
Listen, my editor at Montlake, she says to me every time she would give me a suggestion, she would say, it's your work. You don't have to do any of this. This is what I think, but I'm totally leaving it up to you. And that's usually implied, but she's always really careful to say that to me, that she doesn't want to force any changes on me. She wants me to do what I'm comfortable with. So it's ultimately, it's your book. You do what feels right to you.
Sorry, I was just gonna say that I really like Betty. I thought she
do
was
too.
really fun, and there was a whole. I just felt like there was a lot more hidden stories with her, and then it just kind of made me think: are there any other characters in the book that you would like to develop further and put into a whole nother book?
Well, I'm glad you love Betty. I love Betty too. And the more I wrote her, the more I loved her. I just kept thinking about her and thinking about her. She's sort of living with me. If this book takes off, I could see writing a sequel. I kind of had this idea for a road trip book where Joybird winds up in the car with Sid and Betty and Riley. So I thought that could be kind of fun. So yeah, I would actually love to write Betty into another book. I will tell you the way I usually do know. I carefully plot my books, and I don't want. I assume there are people here who haven't read it. I don't want to spoil anything, but the way things ended for Betty's story was not the way I saw it when I first started writing the book. So some of that took me by surprise. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming and for speaking about the book and writing it.
Thank you.
It was very enjoyable. It had a lot of emotion in it.
Thank
I
you.
was laughing sometimes I was frustrated and surprised, and it was really, really
Great, thank
But
you.
Betty, you introduced her first as a little kooky character, which she was,
Yeah.
but she ended up with really the grounding voice of reason.
Right.
It was well done.
Thank you. I like to see when Joybird was in the room with Sid and Betty, that it felt like a family to her. It felt like she was with a mother figure, a father. Certainly she was a mother figure to Joybird, and that felt right to me. but yeah, I sort of really let myself have fun with her character. I just really love the idea of this hippie who held on to her ideals all these years. Yeah, and you know how she would balance out Sid's cynicism and Joybird's naivete. Yeah.
Any other questions? No?
So while Emily comes back up, we always end our interviews with a lightning round.
Oh,
But I
okay.
wanted to ask you a quick question because you mentioned it at the beginning where you said when you see your name on a book in a store, you could, you know, that's it, you can die. What was it like? Like a lot of artists say when they hear their song on the radio for the first time, it's just this feeling they can't explain. How did that feel when you walked in and saw your name on your first book?
It's a funny thing because it's the moments that you don't anticipate that have the biggest impact. I am a library patron. I've always been at the Mrs. Westway book that I'm reading right now is from the Jericho Public Library. What I hadn't expected was walking into the Jericho Public Library and seeing my first book with that plastic library binding on it. It took me by surprise how incredibly moved I was. And I started crying. I have a real romantic connection to library books. There's just something about those soft, worn pages. There's something about experiencing the story and knowing people you don't know who they are, where they've been, what they thought they read. They didn't just read this book, they read this book,
Right.
you know? And I've just always had this sort of romantic connection to library books. So to walk in and I didn't expect to have an emotional reaction. I went, it just really took me. So there was two moments right at the beginning. One was that moment, and the other was when I did. Does anybody remember Book Review, that store in Huntington, a very big, wonderful independent bookstore that went out of business, unfortunately. So I did an event for my first book launched at Book Review. And do you remember they used to have these like 8-foot tall posters in the window with the author's name on it? And again, like I parked my car, I was walking toward the bookstore for my event, and I saw my name in those giant red letters, and I just, it really took me by surprise, and it sort of like my breath caught, and I said, wow, this is not a joke, this is real life, this is really happening, I'm really a writer here. Wow. So yeah, those were the moments. And I'll tell you, 10 books later, every time you get the mail where you get that box of books and you hold your book for the first time, it's like the first time all over again. It's always special. There's always something very, very magical about it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. So we always end our interviews with a 60-second lightning round. We just ask you some fun questions and you answer with whatever pops into your head first.
Let's give it a shot.
So Emily will put 60 seconds on the clock.
You ready?
Are you ready?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Go.
Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Peacock, Disney Plus, Apple, or Max?
Well, since my publisher Montlake is owned by Amazon, I suppose I'm supposed to say Amazon Prime.
Okay.
But I do watch a lot on Netflix.
What are you currently binging?
What am I
60
currently
seconds.
binging? I know I only have to go to the next one. I'll think about it. I am
What's your-
currently binging something, but I forget what it was.
What's your favorite snack or cocktail?
Cocktail, that one's easy. It's a vodka gimlet. Very dry. What's that? Plantain chips
Ooh.
are my snack of choice. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh, I know what I'm binging. Poker Face.
Oh, okay.
12 seconds.
Uber or Yellow Taxi?
Yellow Taxi, my family.
Favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Print or audiobook?
Audio right now.
Debbie or Emily?
Both.
Well, this has been...
I think I passed, don't you?
This has been wonderful. We really thank you for coming
having me
here
so
today.
much.
So everyone, Ellen Meister.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out on a rainy weeknight. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for inviting me. This was wonderful.
Thank you so much. The book, Joyride, is upstairs, so you can check it out at the welcome desk. And we still have desserts in the back, so please help yourself. And again, thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Also, the books on the table are available for checkout too if you want to walk out, not even.
Thank you, everyone.